Are you looking to get on the road to your dream career? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Mentor Select Podcast with your host, Derek Phillips. Always stay up to date on social media at Mentor Select and online at mentorselect.com. Here's your host of the Mentor Select Podcast, Derek Phillips.
Welcome to episode 31 of the Mentor Select Podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. So this has been a very exciting week for me. This past weekend on Sunday, I ran my first marathon, 26.2 miles. So if y'all remember back on January 2nd is when I started training. So less than 8 weeks, I decided to go for it. Originally on my training plan, I was supposed to actually do a half marathon and train for the full 16 weeks to do a full marathon. But hey, I didn't want to leave any extra energy on the table. So I decided, hey, let's go for the full 26. So the first 19 miles of the marathon, everything went as planned. I had an ambitious goal to run under 4 hours. So everything was going as planned. I ran out maybe a little too fast. And by mile 19, I certainly hit that infamous wall that people say you hit by normally mile 20. So those last 7 miles are pretty rough, to say the least. I certainly had to dig deep to make sure that I crossed the finish line. Giving up was never an option, but certainly there was some times where I was walking and certainly struggling. But it was definitely a great experience. And my motivation to cross that finish line, I had my beautiful wife out there. She was following me along the course, and also originally set this goal. I wanted to accomplish this in honor of becoming a father. So my daughter, Legacy Phillips, she'll be born in June. So this is something I just wanted to accomplish beforehand. So really to prove to myself that I had the mental and physical strength to do a marathon, which hopefully translates to me having the mental and physical strength to be a father. I'm looking forward to it. We're definitely excited, counting down. Now I'm even thinking about what's next. So maybe even an ultra marathon. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Today we have a great show for you. We have Vontoba Terry, who is the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of UI Global Brands, which is a company that makes natural skincare products. So Vontoba is going to share with us just their journey. They're coming up on 10 years of being in business. It's going to share with us the ups and downs, the war stories, and just give you a lot of great insight about being an entrepreneur, growing your business, and even for aspiring entrepreneurs, just how to get started, how to transition from a 9 to 5 to actually running your own company. So you certainly want to tune in for all of the great wisdom that Vontoba is going to share with you. On that note, let's get started. So today we have Vontoba on the Mentor Select Podcast. Welcome. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm great. Glad to have you on today. Certainly looking forward to hear all the knowledge you share with us. So on the Mentor Select Podcast, we like to get to know our guest mentors a little better. So you mind telling us something that most people don't know about you? It's a fun fact.
Fun fact, my wife and I once had multiple businesses before we started the one we have now. And one of those was a chocolate-covered strawberries business called Sweet Nothings. And we actually had one client. We started it and closed it with that one client, but it was profitable.
Okay. All right. Cool. Sweet. I like the name. Did y'all just sell chocolate-covered strawberries?
Yeah. We just sold chocolate-covered strawberries. And my wife always jokes, the reason we closed it was because we ate up all the extra inventory. But it was, they did turn out good. It was for a Alpha Phi Alpha Sweetheart Gala. And we actually had them as a client, and
okay,
it was great.
All right, so that's how y'all got started as entrepreneurs, huh?
Well, there were a couple things before that. We had a photo branding business, which is what my wife called it, and taking photographs of people and figuring out a way for that to evolve their brand. We did a popcorn business that never got off the ground. We're going to do different flavored popcorns that have never been on the market. My wife did line jackets for fraternities and sororities. I did some tax consulting. I mean, we tried a bunch of stuff when we were in graduate school in Las Vegas. And a lot of people, I live in Texas now. A lot of people here don't know that we lived in Las Vegas for 4 years before we came here. And that was sort of our single, no kids, dual income time. And when you're in the adult playground, you can have a lot of fun with that.
Right. Sounds like that's what you all did. Good times.
Yeah.
Cool. Have you always had that entrepreneurial bug?
It's always been there. I come from entrepreneurs, and so does she. And we've been familiar with other people who've ran small family businesses. Most of them were solopreneurs or only had employees seasonally or when they needed them. But we wanted to do something bigger than what we had seen in the past. And fortunately, after about 8 or 9 years doing this, we'll celebrate 10 years next year. We have a great trajectory.
Wow. All right. What is your current business venture?
So we run UI Global Brands, LLC. I am one of the founders of the company. I actually oversee the finance, accounting, logistics, HR, and IT and legal departments of the company. We have an office out in Frisco, and our Keystone brand is Urban Hydration. A lot of people have heard of it, a lot haven't. What we're working on in the next year is building brand awareness for the brand, but we are distributed in major retailers, currently in several hundred Walmart stores, JCPenney salons, and Sally Beauty stores. And then all of the TJ Maxx, Burlington, Home Goods, Marshalls, Ross, and Tuesday Morning stores around the country. I could name drop more.
That's impressive.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You say you're all coming up on a 10-year anniversary?
Yep, coming up on a 10-year anniversary. And when I look back on when we were first getting started in 2009, a lot has changed since then. Back then, we were just doing basic body butters. And within a couple of years of getting started, we decided, you know what, we need to do natural products. And we sort of started off doing natural products before it became a trendy sort of hot thing. So we got a head start on some of our competition.
Okay. Yep. I'd say it's certainly trendy now, and it helps to get that head start and that market share.
Oh, for sure.
All right. So let's rewind a little bit. What were your childhood aspirations?
My childhood, I remember telling my grandmother that I was going to be a brain surgeon.
Okay.
And I really never pursued the medical field at all. It was just something that I thought sounded good, sounded like something smart people do.
Right.
But
that's ironic. I was just talking to my wife last night. She's currently reading Michelle Obama's book. She talked about how Michelle mentioned that, she pretty much used to tell people as a kid that she wanted to be a pediatric doctor or whatever, and just how people just like hearing that. So that's what she thought she was going to say. Where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, which is about 45 minutes south of Detroit. And a lot of people don't know that Toledo almost ended up being a part of Michigan. And I found out recently the University of Michigan was almost located in Toledo.
Right. Yeah, I was watching that game, the Ohio State-Michigan game. They had mentioned it. Yeah, that's interesting. Certainly familiar with Toledo. My wife's originally from Toledo. That's how she introduced me to you. Some talented people come out of Toledo. Must be something in the water there.
Oh, yeah. Well, there is, one of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world is right there. We got the Great Lakes in the Midwest with Lake Erie. I think Lake Michigan is a little bit nicer, but don't tell my Toledo family that.
Yeah, that's cool. As far as when did you meet your wife?
I met her in college. I was in the Inroads internship program, and it was really a blessing that I was able to get into that program because I was going to be working on the roof for my dad's general contractor company all summer, and I found this opportunity, applied for it, and they said, well, we don't have any internships. And one day I was coming off the roof, company called up, it was actually KeyBank, and said, we found out about you from Inroads. We want to bring you in for an internship. And you listed your father as a reference. Why I did that, I don't know. But he was right there, and he had to come down off the roof so he could give a reference for me. That next week I was at KeyBank, but Inroads had a leadership development institute, and something I always recommend is taking those opportunities to learn more and more. And this was one where they brought us into Grand Rapids, Michigan, to learn about how to be business professionals as college students, so we'd be prepared for the workforce. So I actually met her there. We were there for 3 days at the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. in Grand Rapids and talked to each other, met at lunch, became friends. I actually started off as her economics tutor. So business has always been a part of our relationship.
Okay, that's great. So once you graduated from college, you started off in the banking industry?
Yes, so I did an internship at KeyBank, and then after I graduated from college, I had a short stint at AXA Financial Advisors as a retirement planner. I sold life insurance, but once I got a check for 80 cents and 80 cents commission, I decided I needed to do something else. I was engaged by that time, and I called up KeyBank and I said, I know you didn't have anything when I graduated, but if you enjoyed the work I did as an intern, I'd love to come over full time. And they brought me on. So I actually started my true passion career in banking. And I spent about 10 years, actually 14 years in the banking industry before I took the leap to entrepreneurship full time.
Wow, cool. I'm sure that experience has turned out to be valuable for you as an entrepreneur.
It did. I was fortunate to land at banks that were very focused on credit and, in the sense that they're looking at every aspect of how a company operates and more than just the financials. They're looking at the character of the ownership, the leadership structure, the forecasted growth, the strategy for getting to that growth, and really identifying any major issues with that company that they're banking. And I feel like I got an MBA in the workforce. I reviewed hundreds of companies during my time in banking, and some of my clients, by the time I reached the latter part of my banking career before I became an entrepreneur, were very large. I actually banked Cox Cable, Fossil, Sally Beauty, several large energy companies, several large life insurance companies, and had a lot of great experience presenting solutions to them and driving a lot of growth in a portfolio. But at the end of the day, entrepreneurship came calling.
All right, so tell us more about the calling. I know a lot of entrepreneurs referred to taking the leap and what that transition was like.
The way that came about was a conversation at the dining room table. My wife and I were finishing up graduate school in Las Vegas. And you think, well, you living in Las Vegas, why would you want to spend your time going to school? But it was the best time for us to do it before we had kids. But she sat me down and she said, we deal with a lot of dry skin here, and I think it might be a good business idea to come out with body creams for dry skin. And I said, you know what? That does sound like a good idea, but what can we do to make it different? And she said, well, I noticed that a lot of these products out there have chemicals in them. And while they're saying dermatologists like them and all of that, the packaging isn't nice. It doesn't appeal to me. And it doesn't seem like the products are really, focused on natural ingredients. So I said, well, let's come up with a business plan. She said, let's come up with a business plan. And we put our heads together and entered a business plan competition. And that's sort of where it started, right at that dining room table.
Wow, cool. So I was looking at one of your videos on YouTube, and you mentioned about how initially you were still working your full-time job in banking, and then also like on weekends, I guess, helping out with your all's business. How was that?
That was difficult because when I knew it was bad when it got to the point where I was taking my lunch breaks to work on the company. I get home, greet everyone, eat dinner, and I was doing invoices at night, sometimes until midnight, payables and reviewing sales data and contracts, because I was even working on legal documents for us then, making sure that our law firm looked at them. And it just seemed like by the time I think it was late 2015, I just came to my group manager at the bank and I said, I really can't do this anymore. I've been splitting time between you and my family business, and it's not fair to you, and it's become too much work for my wife, and it's time for me to go full time. And they tried to keep me around. They actually gave me a parachute rather than just letting me jump without. Okay. And they gave me the option of coming back within 2 months. And fortunately, I made the decision to stay out into entrepreneurship. And now we've got 10 employees and planning to expand more from here.
Okay. That's awesome. Any regrets?
Well, I always like to say, never have any regrets, but if I was to be, fully transparent, one of my regrets would be running two businesses at the same time. For a long time, we ran a lingerie business alongside our skincare and bath and body business. And that actually sucked a lot of capital out of the business and diverted our attention. And now that we shut that lingerie business down last summer, now that we've closed that and focused on the core business that's been the most profitable all along, we've seen substantial growth, triple-digit growth.
Okay. I think that's a challenge a lot of entrepreneurs have. Tell us more about just the importance of focus.
Focus is so important because there are so many distractions out there right now. I mean, entertainment, if you want to be entertained, there's something everywhere. We've got our phones, we've got our iPads, we've got Netflix. And then, even outside of distractions, there's always the ideas. And then, every entrepreneur is going to have multiple ideas, multiple business plans. I want multiple streams of income. But then I look at the Dallas Business Journal and I see an article about a company that has one product and they're doing $1 million. And I'm like, now that's focus. Because, you just have one thing. And it's like when you can just focus, and I think there's power in focus because you're able to come up with strategies and really not just surface strategies, but deep strategies that have plans of action that are measurable. And that's when you can really have a more rich experience rather than just being spread thin in all these different areas. Because entrepreneurs have to wear many hats anyway. So to wear many hats in many different areas of focus can be stressful.
Yeah, extremely. What is it like running a business with your wife? Is that a challenge at times?
It can be at times because then there's always the opportunity to talk about it, right? And it's hard sometimes to turn that off and say, okay, during this time, we're not going to talk about it. And during this time, we can. But I find it to be a lot of fun because we've gotten past sort of that initial stage where we're bumping heads and not really seeing eye to eye. And now we're in a place where I know my lane, she knows her lane, but we still respect each other's opinion and listen to each other. And I think that's been very valuable to the company. Awesome. But it's fun, get to go to lunch together, and work outings are together. But we do see each other almost 24 hours a day. So that if you're going to do that, it has to be with someone that you like, right?
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah.
What I like about y'all's videos is how you always say we're married and in love.
Right.
It's important because you certainly can be married and not in love. It's ideal to be married and in love, especially if you're going to work together.
Oh yeah, because the problems don't stay in one place or the other. They they tend to have trails they follow. So.
Right.
Yeah, but communication has really been the key. Set up meetings, and just like anybody else, I'll get on her calendar, she'll get on my calendar, and we'll have an agenda, and we'll cover it. And there's the business hat, and there's the best friend hat, and the spouse hat, and got to know which hat you're wearing. And,
okay.
Yeah, it's been fun.
That's great advice. Now, in terms, you mentioned about your growth really since dropping the lingerie line and really being more focused on the core business. What else would you contribute to the growth?
I think persistence. There's some retailers that we just decided, we want to sell to Walmart, or we want to sell to Sally Beauty since they're right in our backyard. And we never gave up. I mean, some of these, we'd been pitching Walmart for 6 years before we finally got in the door. And the first time we pitched products to them, it was with labels that we printed on our printer at home. And when I look back and think about how we were presenting ourselves, I'm just like, wow, we've come so far. But just being willing to take no and not see that as never, and to keep going and coming up with ideas and pitching new concepts, I think is really what's helped us. Because some people see no as a final answer. We just see it as an opportunity to get a yes on the other side of it. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. No doesn't have to be permanent. It could just be maybe not right now, but so that persistence is going to pay off. You mentioned starting a family. Like how your kids, how are they involved in the business? Do you expose them to it?
Yes, we do. Actually, funny story. We've been bringing our kids to the office after school off and on over the last couple of years, especially when my oldest was in kindergarten. He'd come after school every day because back then we only had a couple people in the office. But For the past week, I've had them coming here, and my oldest actually put together a business plan for us for a product. And he brought some of our products in the office, and he's like, what if you put this on a paper towel and did this and this? And he wrote up a one-pager. he hand wrote it on some notebook paper and even drew a picture of how to use it. And just that was totally unplanned, unscripted, and it was just great to see. I have it on my desk right now.
Wow, that is so cool. That's a great story. Y'all are planting those seeds early and know what they're going to blossom into.
We were at a hair show where we were a title sponsor earlier this month, and I walked in the door, and we were supposed to check in, but he just walked right in, and the lady said, hold on, and said, I'm with UI Global Brands. And she said, oh.
Wow, that confidence, that is great. So you mentioned being in Walmart and a lot of those other big retailers. What was it like the first time you got that yes from Walmart?
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. Jumping up and down, hugging. I didn't cry, but I smiled. A very big smile, and going out to dinner. So we celebrated all along the way. So you celebrate getting the yes, you celebrate getting the actual purchase order, and then you celebrate shipping it. And then you celebrate the fact that you're hitting your sales goals, and so it's just continual celebration. So
yeah,
it
makes all of those no's, sweat, and tears worth it, huh?
Oh yeah, because there's been a lot of no's. We still get some no's sometimes.
So being in business almost 10 years, I'm sure you all have some war stories.
Ooh.
Any come to mind?
Oh yeah, one big one. We had found a factory in Dallas, and we wanted them to make some body scrubs for us. And they said they could do it. They said they could deliver by October. And I contacted them at the end of August, and this was 4 years ago. And I said, hey, how's the production going? I'd like to stop by and see how everything's going. And they said, you know what? We haven't made the products yet. I said, okay, well, what's the timeline? They said, well, actually, we haven't even started. We haven't even ordered anything for it. And I said, what do you mean you haven't ordered anything for it? I placed the order a month ago. And they said, well, let me get back to you and call you back. So later on, we found out that they decided they couldn't do the order at all. A few months later, they went out of business, but that's another story. But we had to put our heads together, and we prayed about it, talked to our pastor, and we decided to open a factory ourselves. So within a month's time, by October 1st, we had our own sugar scrub factory in Frisco, where we were making body scrubs by hand. We found people from church, people off the street to work in the factory. And we didn't have any money when we did this. We actually got lucky and found a place where a football factory was moving out on September 30th. And we were like literally in there on October 1st trying to hit deadlines for our retailers. And when you talk about war story, I mean, I had to negotiate 30-day terms with all the vendors because, like I said, we didn't have any money for this. And then my wife was 36 weeks pregnant when we moved into the space. So it was not perfect timing. They sort of pulled one over on us, and we learned a lot from that experience. Yeah, that was a process right there.
What were some, in hindsight, what are some of the lessons you learned from that experience that you would do differently or that you all do differently now?
I learned that it's important to have people that you trust, and it's important to have processes in place and goals in place because unless I gave them a goal in terms of how many units we wanted to fill and box up an hour, it was going to be all over the place and difficult to calculate the cost per unit. So I had to be very goal-oriented and intentional about sharing the goals and how we were hitting them. And that was definitely a big lesson learned. And then quality control. We ended up closing that factory later because some of the bottles would leak because people would turn the bottles upside down. And we didn't know then, but we know now that the solution was just been to seal the packages with the basic equipment you could find, but we didn't. So lesson learned there.
Okay. Yeah, some valuable lessons, but through it all, you all persevered and got creative. Still made it happen. So that's inspiring. So going back to as far as like taking the leap from the 9 to 5, that security, to being an entrepreneur, what advice would you give someone who's considering taking that leap?
The advice I'd give someone who wants to take that leap, similar to when I took that leap, is to jump with a parachute. if you already have a job, until you feel like you can't do that job adequately, keep the job, keep the money, keep being able to pay your bills, and use that as an opportunity to launch into being an entrepreneur. While I was working at the bank, I was still growing the business with my wife, but she actually didn't have to pay herself for the first 6 years the business was open because we, had that agreement like, okay, you're growing the business, I'll come when I can. And that afforded us a lot of opportunities to make some decisions that we wouldn't have been able to make if we didn't have that financial support from another job. But I worked at the bank as long as I could, and I didn't steal time from my employer by working on the business during work hours. But the evenings, weekends, there were a lot of movies, a lot of trips, a lot of parties that I skipped so that I could do the work on this business. And people will be surprised where you can find that margin, that space of time to work on your business outside of a current job. I mean, there's many, many hours that are available in a day. It could be as simple as waking up an hour earlier or staying up an hour later every day. And those hours add up and can make all the difference, because when you do launch the business, you want to have a plan already in place. You don't want to be starting from scratch, because that can be daunting and intimidating. And especially if you don't have some things already set up, how am I going to, if it's a service, who am I going to pitch this to? Have already, because sometimes with some of these retailers, it can be a 6 month to a year process just to reach them, and then another 6 months to a year to get set up in their system. So, and even with services, contractors, things of that nature, you have bidding processes, you have different types of paperwork that are required. And if you can have that ready before you launch, then it's less of a headache.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. That's something that I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot less stress when you already have that plan in place before launching, and like say have that parachute.
Right.
In terms of being an entrepreneur, especially aspiring entrepreneurs, what are some common misconceptions that you think aspiring entrepreneurs have?
I think aspiring entrepreneurs have a misconception that everybody will want their product. That if you build it, they will come. I've learned that everybody won't want my product, even if it's what they need. And they're not trying to try my product either. But those who do, I have to show them love, because they can become loyal customers. We found that I'll give you an example. When we had the lingerie business, we discovered that most of what we sold was full cup and plus size lingerie. So rather than say, okay, I'm going to try to sell this to everybody, for our future collections, we actually focused on double D, triple D, and eventually G and H cup, and then plus sizes for bras and lingerie. And that ended up working out very well for us for a few years. But we had to say, okay, not everybody wants this. Let's focus on, the wonderful people who do. So.
Right. Yeah. Seems like a reoccurring thing, going back to focus.
Yes, focus. Yeah.
Picking that lane and that target demographic. So in addition to being an entrepreneur, a husband, a father, what else do you do? Have you written any books?
Yes, I have. In 2015, I published the book, Operation C, The Gift. It's actually on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And I believe I have a link to it on my website, Vontoba.com. But the book is about a couple in Texas that realizes that they have special abilities. And I call it inspirational fiction. So they discover that the husband discovers he has the gift of healing, and the wife has a special knack for, she's a nurse. She discovers she has the ability to actually revive people after they have expired. So they end up going on a journey to find an ancient artifact in Egypt. And I see it as a sort of like a movie type book, because I like watching movies. So, your National Treasure, Indiana Jones type of thing, but with a lot of inspirational aspects to it, and even some spiritual overtones. Very, very, it's not like, subliminal messages when it comes to the inspirational portion. It's very, definitely inspired by biblical references. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good book. I have to add it to my list, and so they encourage any of the listeners to check it out. It says available on your website and Amazon.
Amazon.com. Operation Seed the Gift.
All right, cool. So what was that like publishing your first book, or did you always have aspirations to be an author?
Yes, I always did. I enjoy writing poetry. Never thought I'd write a novel, but the way I found time to do that was because when my wife was pregnant with our second son, she would go to sleep at about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock every night. And so rather I hadn't gotten into Netflix at that point yet. So rather than watch TV, I would just write for about 2 hours every night. And by the time I knew it, I had a book done. So, and I am working on a second book, and I'm excited about that because I think it's going to be much better.
Okay. Do you find it easier to write the second book than the first?
I do. It just sort of flows. Once you understand your writing process and how to put together a narrative, definitely. And then I have a book that I use now that's sort of walking me through every step of outlining the plot. I say my first book was more foundational, just establishing characters and establishing a universe, sort of like Stan Lee and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now this next book is sort of diving into more of a story. The first book takes place over 40 days, and this one is more over 7 days and a more thrilling story, suspenseful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I'm currently working on a book, and like you mentioned, if you just set aside a time to write every day, before you know it, you have it.
Yeah.
It's been
definitely
to break things up into pieces.
Exactly.
Certainly. I guess as an entrepreneur, once times get hard, when you're having just things are really stressful, things are hard, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you inspired to keep going?
I always remember my why. A few years ago, we pitched an angel investor, and he kept asking us, "Why are you doing this?" And we would answer and say, "Well, why are you doing that?" And by the time we dug into it, he was like, "That's a very important question to ask, because if you don't know why you're doing it, something comes and rocks you, then you're just going to fall down." And so that's really important to me, is remember that when we're having tough times, and something pops up all the time, right? I can't get too discouraged, because I know that there's a reason for what we do. Now, another example is that in our business, for every product we sell, we make a donation to Water is Life, our charity partner. And in July, we built a well in Kenya, in the Kibera slum, the largest slum in Africa. And that well is supplying over 10,000 gallons of water an hour now.
Wow.
At a school for 300 students in Kenya. And teachers were getting paid in bags of corn, and students didn't have uniforms, but now they'll be able to have fresh water and sell the excess water to the community, for a very small amount, and be able to pay the teachers, have uniforms and new books. And when you talk about making transformational change like that, it becomes more than just a balance sheet and income statement. It becomes a mission. We have a scholarship program. Yesterday, we spent 4 hours at Minnie's Food Pantry and actually served over 100 families with enough food for a month. And when you're able to do things like that through a business, it's hard to get too discouraged about things, because there's always, there's always more hope to be had. There's always something better on the other side of it.
I love that. Always more hope to be had. Yeah, that's very important too. We mentioned about the angel investor. I kept asking, even when you answer your first why and then say, why then those follow-up whys, and that really forces you to dig deep. I like that a lot. Also, I know there's people who really love what they do. Yeah, they have that why, and usually it's related to, it's outside of them. It's bigger than themselves. They're serving someone else. They're making someone else's life better by what they're doing. It's a great driving force. And you said the name of the nonprofit is Water is Life?
Yes. Water is Life. Great charity run by a gentleman from Oklahoma City.
Awesome. Yes. Great cause. So since this podcast focuses on mentorship, what role have mentors played in your life?
Oh, mentors have played a big role. I have two mentors right now. One, Richard Riccardi, part of former owner of Riccardi and Sons. He actually sold his business last year, and packaged food business, and he's given me a lot of advice on strategy and really thinking about our brand. And then Larry Kemp, who's the one of the family members of the founder of Kemp & Sons, which is a cleaning company out of Fort Worth. He has a motto, and he says, "Outwork them." You know, if you want to succeed, outwork them. Like, and he's written a couple books, and it's been an inspiration to me. He's an older gentleman, been married for a really long time, and he actually works with his wife. You know, he's CFO, she's CEO, and they're beautiful, beautiful people.
Wow,
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly believe that mentorship is vital. And then also, just as an entrepreneur, I realize how important networking is as well. I think a lot of people downplay, but networking is vital along with mentorship. Well, Vontoba, giving us a lot of great advice. Greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. And I know you say your son's birthday is today, so I know you have a lot going on, but we really appreciate you taking time to spread that knowledge and just everything, the wisdoms you learned from that experience of being an entrepreneur for almost 10 years now. That's a remarkable achievement. 10 years as an entrepreneur is like 100 years, and that's remarkable. So, Vontoba, what's the best way for people to contact you?
The best way for people to reach me is probably on LinkedIn. Vontoba Terry, UI Global Brands. They can go to urbanhydration.com, and I'd be happy to, tell anybody about our story and our products, and hope your listeners will support.
Awesome. Yeah, you all have a remarkable story. And before I let you go, you have any parting words of advice for the listeners?
Well, my mantra is to give and grow. If you're always giving and you're always having a growth mindset, then you have no choice but to be successful. Give and grow.
Love it. Love it. You should trademark that. I like that a lot. Great. Well, it's been a pleasure, Vontoba. Again, I really appreciate it. Yeah, you all keep doing what you're doing, and looking forward to your second book as well. I'll have to pick up some of y'all products. I know I have dry skin. So
Thank you. Please do. We got some great ones. We just launched some new products.
Great. All right. Well, appreciate it. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
That was a fantastic interview with the co-founder and COO of UI Global Brands. Be sure to check out their skincare products. I'll certainly include the URL to their website in the show notes. So be sure to check it out, and just let Vontoba know what resonated with you about this interview. I think he gave a lot of great advice as far as for aspiring entrepreneurs and also people who are currently running a business. He gave some good advice to help continue to experience growth as an entrepreneur. So we really appreciate that. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, and review the Mentor Select podcast on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening on. And be sure to share with your friends and family, anyone who you feel can benefit from the mentorship from our guest mentors. So be sure to tune in next week for another phenomenal interview from our guest mentors.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Mentor Select podcast, helping you identify and follow your passions. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit mentorselect.com and Mentor Select on social media. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review. We'll catch you next time.